The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zethkari of the Valorian Empire approached the central podium. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the ambient light, casting rainbow patterns across the vast amphitheater where representatives from 47 different species had gathered. The emergency session had been called with unprecedented urgency, and the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. "Esteemed colleagues," Zethkari began, his voice carrying the weight of terrible news, "we face a crisis unlike any in our recorded history. The humans have vanished." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. The Morellan delegates' tentacles writhed in distress, while the insectoid hive queen's compound eyes darkened with concern. The humans had been the newest members of the Galactic Council, having joined only 50 standard years ago. But their impact had been profound and unsettling. "Vanished?" questioned Prime Minister Vexilon of the Arctanian Federation, her scaled brow furrowing. "Explain yourself, Ambassador. An entire species does not simply disappear." Zethkari activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. Three-dimensional images of star systems appeared, rotating slowly in the artificial gravity field. 72 hours ago, all human colonies, outposts, and vessels went dark simultaneously. No distress signals, no explanation, no trace of conflict. They simply stopped responding. The images showed dozens of human worlds, from their origin planet Earth to their newest terraforming projects on the rim worlds. Space stations that had bustled with activity now drifted silent and empty. Trade routes that had carried human cargo ships showed nothing but void. Dr. Kefta, the renowned xenobiologist from the Ethereal Collective, leaned forward in her energy form. "Have reconnaissance teams been sent to investigate these locations?" "Several," Zethkari replied grimly. "The first team to reach New Geneva found the planet completely abandoned. Cities intact, technology still functioning, meals left half-finished on tables. It was as if every human on the planet had simply walked away in the middle of their daily routines." The chamber erupted in worried murmurs. The humans had always been peculiar among galactic species, but this behavior was beyond anything previously documented. Since joining the Council, they had displayed capabilities that made many species uncomfortable. Their rapid technological advancement, their unusual problem-solving methods, and their disturbing tendency to find military applications for everything had earned them a reputation as the galaxy's wild card. Chancellor Mordain of the Peaceful Coalition stood, his tall, ethereal form shimmering with anxiety. "What of their military forces?" "The human defense fleet was considerable." "Gone," Zethkari confirmed. "Every ship, every weapon, every piece of military hardware. The orbital defense platforms around Earth are operational, but unmanned. It's as if they evacuated not just their personnel, but everything they considered strategically valuable." The Hive Queen's voice buzzed with concern. The humans were always secretive about their research projects. Their scientists often worked on classified developments that they refused to share with the Council. Could this disappearance be related to some experiment gone wrong? "Or gone right," muttered Admiral Rexus of the Corvan War Fleet, his scarred face grim with suspicion. "The humans always made us nervous. They were too adaptable, too innovative. They found ways to win conflicts that should have been impossible for a species so young and primitive." The mention of human military prowess sent a chill through the assembly. Despite being relative newcomers to galactic civilization, humans had quickly established themselves as formidable allies and dangerous enemies. Their first major conflict had been with the hegemony of Sark, a militaristic empire that had conquered dozens of systems. The hegemony had expected an easy victory against the primitive humans. Instead, the humans had introduced concepts like guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, and asymmetric tactics that the galaxy had never seen. They turned the hegemony's own size and bureaucracy against them, striking at supply lines, communication networks, and civilian morale with surgical precision. The war had ended not with a grand battle, but with the hegemony's government collapsing from internal rebellions, inspired by human propaganda broadcasts. Their warfare was unlike anything we'd encountered, Admiral Rexus continued. They didn't just fight with weapons. They fought with ideas, with culture, with economics. They made war into an art form that encompassed every aspect of civilization. Dr. Silandros from the Scientific Consortium raised a valid concern. But why would they leave? The humans seemed content with their place in the galaxy. They were thriving, expanding, contributing to galactic knowledge and commerce. Zethkari's expression darkened further. That's what makes this so disturbing. Analysis of their final communications suggests this wasn't an evacuation due to crisis. It was planned, methodical, and executed with the precision we've come to associate with human operations. The holographic display shifted to show communication logs, energy signatures, and movement patterns from the days leading up to the disappearance. The data painted a picture of a species that had been quietly preparing for something significant. Look at these patterns, Zethkari pointed to the data streams. For the past 6 months, human ships had been making unusual trips to the galactic rim. They were transporting materials, personnel, and equipment to regions we don't monitor closely. They were building something out there. The implications hung heavy in the air. The humans had been planning this disappearance for months, possibly years, but why? What could drive an entire species to abandon their established place in galactic society? There's something else, Zethkari added reluctantly. The final message we received from the human government was disturbing. The chamber fell silent as he activated an audio recording. The voice that emerged was calm, professional, and unmistakably human. To our friends and colleagues in the Galactic Council, we thank you for the opportunity to participate in this grand civilization. However, recent developments have necessitated our withdrawal from galactic affairs. We wish you prosperity and peace in your future endeavors. Do not attempt to follow us. The message was polite, almost courteous, but there was something in the tone that sent shivers through the assembled delegates. It wasn't the message of a species fleeing in panic or desperation. It was the message of a species that had made a calculated decision and was now implementing it with characteristic human efficiency. As the recording ended, the chamber remained silent. Each delegate wrestled with the implications of humanity's departure and the ominous warning embedded in their farewell message. The humans were gone, and somehow, that made them more terrifying than ever. 3 weeks after the human disappearance, the first reconnaissance mission returned from the Outer Rim with news that shook the Galactic Council to its core. Commander Yixtal of the Exploration Corps stood before the emergency assembly, her usually composed Nexarian features betrayed by obvious distress. "What we found defies explanation," she began, activating a series of holographic displays that filled the chamber with images of massive construction projects scattered across previously empty star systems. The humans didn't just vanish. They built an entire infrastructure network in the galactic rim that we never detected. The images showed colossal space stations, each one larger than most planetary capitals, mining operations that had stripped entire asteroid belts, shipyards that dwarfed anything the Council had ever constructed. All of it abandoned now, but clearly operational until very recently. "How is this possible?" demanded Fleet Admiral Krendos of the Hegemony Remnant, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "Our long-range sensors monitor all significant construction projects. Nothing of this magnitude could have been built without our knowledge." Commander Yixtal's expression grew grimmer. "They use stealth technology we've never encountered. Our best scientists are analyzing the residual energy signatures, but preliminary reports suggest the humans developed cloaking methods that operate on principles we don't understand." Dr. Malthessa, from the Advanced Technology Institute, leaned forward, her energy form flickering with excitement and concern. "Show us the technical specifications. How advanced were these installations?" The holographic display shifted to detailed scans of the abandoned facilities. The technology was recognizably human in its practical, efficient design, but the scale and sophistication were far beyond what the humans had displayed during their time in the Council. These shipyards could have produced vessels, at a rate exceeding the combined output of all Council members. Commander Yixtal explained. The mining operations were extracting rare elements we thought were impossible to process efficiently, and the energy signature suggests they had solved several fundamental problems in faster-than-light travel that our scientists have been working on for millennia. The chamber erupted in worried discussions. The humans had always been innovative, but this level of technological advancement in secret suggested capabilities that made their previous achievements seem modest by comparison. "There's more," Commander Yixtal continued, silencing the assembly. "We found evidence of weapons testing. The holographic display showed scarred planetoids and asteroid fields that had been systematically destroyed. The patterns of destruction were unlike anything in the galactic weapons database. These weren't conventional weapons," she explained, highlighting areas where matter seemed to have been completely annihilated. Some of these test sites show evidence of molecular disintegration on a massive scale. Others suggest gravitational manipulation weapons that could destabilize entire star systems. Ambassador Thelnari of the Peaceful Worlds Confederation stood shakily. Are you suggesting the humans developed planet-killing weapons? Worse, Commander Yixtal replied. The humans appear to have developed star-killing weapons. The implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. Star-killing technology was theoretical at best among even the most advanced council species. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible for the humans to achieve. But why? Asked Chancellor Zordon of the Trade Federation. The humans seemed content with peaceful coexistence. They participated in our economic systems, shared their cultural innovations, contributed to joint scientific projects. What could have motivated them to develop such weapons? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Vashati, the elderly head of the Galactic Historical Archive, activated her hover platform and moved to the center of the chamber. I've been reviewing all interactions between humans and other species since their introduction to galactic society, she announced. The pattern is disturbing but clear. The holographic display changed to show a timeline of human interactions with various galactic civilizations. At first, the encounters seemed routine, but Dr. Vashati highlighted subtle patterns that had gone unnoticed. The humans were studying us, she explained. Every trade negotiation, every cultural exchange, every joint military exercise was also an intelligence-gathering operation. They were learning our weaknesses. The timeline showed how humans had systematically gained access to technological specifications, military strategies, economic systems, and social structures of every major galactic power. They had been polite, friendly, and helpful, while quietly cataloging everything that could be used against their hosts. Look at this pattern. Dr. Vashati highlighted specific interactions. Human representatives always asked seemingly innocent questions about defense capabilities, resource limitations, and political vulnerabilities. They were conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Gorthak of the warrior caste stood, his massive frame radiating anger. You're suggesting the humans were planning to attack us from the moment they joined the council? Not attack, Dr. Vashati corrected. They were planning to ensure they could never be threatened by us. The distinction was crucial and terrifying. The humans hadn't been preparing for conquest, but for absolute defense. They had been building the capability to destroy any threat to their species so completely that no one would dare challenge them. Their withdrawal makes sense now, realized Ambassador Kethlos of the Scientific Union. They've completed their preparations. They no longer need our technology, our resources, or our cooperation. They've positioned themselves beyond our reach. Commander Yixtal nodded grimly. The abandoned facilities show evidence of massive resource extraction operations that have been ongoing for decades. They've stockpiled enough materials to sustain their civilization for centuries without any external trade. The scope of human planning became clearer with each revelation. While appearing to integrate into galactic society, they had been systematically preparing for complete independence. Every friendly gesture had been calculated. Every cooperation had served their greater strategy. There's one more thing, Commander Yixtal added reluctantly. We found communication arrays in several systems. They're still active, monitoring all galactic communications traffic. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The humans were gone, but they were still watching. Every decision the council made, every military movement, every political development was being observed and analyzed by the species that had just demonstrated the ability to destroy stars. What do we do? Whispered Ambassador Felnara of the Outer Colonies. How do we respond to a threat we can't locate, can't match, and can't understand? The question hung in the air unanswered. The humans had effectively achieved what every species in the galaxy secretly desired, but none had ever accomplished: absolute security. They had made themselves untouchable while maintaining the ability to touch anyone. As the assembly grappled with this new reality, one fact became increasingly clear. The galaxy had not seen the last of humanity. The humans had not left. They had simply moved to a position where they could no longer be threatened, and that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. 3 weeks after the human disappearance, the first reconnaissance mission returned from the Outer Rim with news that shook the Galactic Council to its core. Commander Yixtal of the Exploration Corps stood before the emergency assembly, her usually composed Nexarian features betrayed by obvious distress. "What we found defies explanation," she began, activating a series of holographic displays that filled the chamber with images of massive construction projects scattered across previously empty star systems. The humans didn't just vanish. They built an entire infrastructure network in the galactic rim that we never detected. The images showed colossal space stations, each one larger than most planetary capitals, mining operations that had stripped entire asteroid belts, shipyards that dwarfed anything the Council had ever constructed, all of it abandoned now but clearly operational until very recently. "How is this possible?" demanded Fleet Admiral Krendos of the Hegemony Remnant, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "Our long-range sensors monitor all significant construction projects. Nothing of this magnitude could have been built without our knowledge." Commander Yixtal's expression grew grimmer. "They use stealth technology we've never encountered. Our best scientists are analyzing the residual energy signatures, but preliminary reports suggest the humans developed cloaking methods that operate on principles we don't understand." Dr. Malthessa, from the Advanced Technology Institute, leaned forward, her energy form flickering with excitement and concern. "Show us the technical specifications. How advanced were these installations?" The holographic display shifted to detailed scans of the abandoned facilities. The technology was recognizably human in its practical, efficient design, but the scale and sophistication were far beyond what the humans had displayed during their time in the Council. These shipyards could have produced vessels at a rate exceeding the combined output of all Council members. Commander Yixtal explained. The mining operations were extracting rare elements we thought were impossible to process efficiently, and the energy signature suggests they had solved several fundamental problems in faster-than-light travel that our scientists have been working on for millennia. The chamber erupted in worried discussions. The humans had always been innovative, but this level of technological advancement in secret suggested capabilities that made their previous achievements seem modest by comparison. "There's more," Commander Yixtal continued, silencing the assembly. "We found evidence of weapons testing. The holographic display showed scarred planetoids and asteroid fields that had been systematically destroyed. The patterns of destruction were unlike anything in the galactic weapons database. These weren't conventional weapons," she explained, highlighting areas where matter seemed to have been completely annihilated. "Some of these test sites show evidence of molecular disintegration on a massive scale. Others suggest gravitational manipulation weapons that could destabilize entire star systems." Ambassador Thelnari of the Peaceful Worlds Confederation stood shakily. "Are you suggesting the humans developed planet-killing weapons?" "Worse," Commander Yixtal replied. "The humans appear to have developed star-killing weapons. The implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. Star-killing technology was theoretical at best among even the most advanced Council species. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible for the humans to achieve." "But why?" asked Chancellor Zordon of the Trade Federation. "The humans seemed content with peaceful coexistence. They participated in our economic systems, shared their cultural innovations, contributed to joint scientific projects. What could have motivated them to develop such weapons?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Vashati, the elderly head of the Galactic Historical Archive, activated her hover platform and moved to the center of the chamber. "I've been reviewing all interactions between humans and other species since their introduction to galactic society," she announced. "The pattern is disturbing but clear." The holographic display changed to show a timeline of human interactions with various galactic civilizations. At first, the encounters seemed routine, but Dr. Vashati highlighted subtle patterns that had gone unnoticed. "The humans were studying us," she explained. "Every trade negotiation, every cultural exchange, every joint military exercise was also an intelligence-gathering operation. They were learning our weaknesses." The timeline showed how humans had systematically gained access to technological specifications, military strategies, economic systems, and social structures of every major galactic power. They had been polite, friendly, and helpful, while quietly cataloging everything that could be used against their hosts. "Look at this pattern." Dr. Vashati highlighted specific interactions. Human representatives always asked seemingly innocent questions about defense capabilities, resource limitations, and political vulnerabilities. They were conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Gorthak of the warrior caste stood, his massive frame radiating anger. "You're suggesting the humans were planning to attack us from the moment they joined the Council?" "Not attack," Dr. Vashadi corrected. "They were planning to ensure they could never be threatened by us." The distinction was crucial and terrifying. The humans hadn't been preparing for conquest, but for absolute defense. They had been building the capability to destroy any threat to their species so completely that no one would dare challenge them. Their withdrawal makes sense now, realized Ambassador Kethlos of the Scientific Union. They've completed their preparations. They no longer need our technology, our resources, or our cooperation. They've positioned themselves beyond our reach. Commander Yixtal nodded grimly. The abandoned facilities show evidence of massive resource extraction operations that have been ongoing for decades. They've stockpiled enough materials to sustain their civilization for centuries without any external trade. The scope of human planning became clearer with each revelation. While appearing to integrate into galactic society, they had been systematically preparing for complete independence. Every friendly gesture had been calculated. Every cooperation had served their greater strategy. "There's one more thing," Commander Yixtal added reluctantly. "We found communication arrays in several systems. They're still active, monitoring all galactic communications traffic." The chamber fell into stunned silence. The humans were gone, but they were still watching. Every decision the Council made, every military movement, every political development was being observed and analyzed by the species that had just demonstrated the ability to destroy stars. "What do we do?" whispered Ambassador Felnara of the Outer Colonies. "How do we respond to a threat we can't locate, can't match, and can't understand?" The question hung in the air unanswered. The humans had effectively achieved what every species in the galaxy secretly desired, but none had ever accomplished: absolute security. They had made themselves untouchable while maintaining the ability to touch anyone. As the Assembly grappled with this new reality, one fact became increasingly clear. The galaxy had not seen the last of humanity. The humans had not left. They had simply moved to a position where they could no longer be threatened, and that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen such heated debate. For 3 months, representatives from across the galaxy had argued, analyzed, and agonized over the human proposal. The session had devolved into chaos, with several species walking out in fury and others threatening military action against anyone who considered accepting human oversight. Ambassador Zethkari stood at the central podium, trying to maintain order as voices rose in anger and fear throughout the vast amphitheater. The crystalline being's normally composed demeanor showed cracks of stress as he called for the 20th time that session for diplomatic decorum. "The Corvin war fleet will never bow to human demands," Admiral Rexus declared, his scarred face twisted with rage. "We are warriors, not cattle to be managed by absent overseers." Chancellor Mordain of the Peaceful Coalition responded with equal fervor. "And that attitude is exactly why we're facing galactic war. The humans are offering us a way to break the cycle of violence that has plagued us for millennia." "At the cost of our freedom," retorted Prime Minister Vexilon of the Arctanian Federation. "These humans disappeared without explanation, developed weapons capable of destroying stars, and now demand we submit to their authority. This is conquest disguised as charity." Dr. Kefta from the Ethereal Collective flickered with agitation. "Have any of you actually analyzed their technological proposals? The energy systems alone could revolutionize galactic civilization. The medical advances could extend lifespans across all species. Technology that comes with chains," Admiral Rexus shot back. "They're bribing us with gifts while holding a gun to our heads." The debate was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Council's Deep Space Monitoring Station. Director Yolthus appeared in holographic form, his expression grave. "Council members, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout human space," he announced. "Whatever they're building out there, it's on a scale that defies our ability to measure." The chamber fell silent as new data streamed across the central display. Energy readings that suggested construction projects spanning multiple star systems, industrial operations that consumed entire planets' worth of resources, fleet movements that involved thousands of ships moving in perfect coordination. "How long have these activities been ongoing?" asked Ambassador Thelnari. Based on the energy signatures, at least 18 months, Director Yolthes replied. But the recent acceleration suggests they're preparing for something significant. The implications sent a chill through the assembly. The humans had been building something massive while the council debated their proposal. But what? Council members, a new voice announced from the chamber's communication array. This is Marcus Chen. May I address the assembly? The holographic display shifted to show the human representative who had first contacted them. This time, however, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood dozens of other humans, and in the background, Silandros could see what appeared to be a massive command center with displays showing real-time data from across the galaxy. Mr. Chen, Ambassador Zethkari said formally, while your request is unusual given the circumstances, the Council will hear your statement. Marcus nodded respectfully. Thank you, Ambassador. I understand there has been considerable debate about our proposal. I'm here to provide clarification and to inform you of recent developments. The display behind Marcus expanded to show a comprehensive overview of human activities in the Outer Rim. The scope was breathtaking. Entire systems had been converted into industrial complexes, shipyards that stretched across multiple orbits, and defensive installations that could hold off fleets numbering in the thousands. What you're seeing represents 50 years of preparation and 6 months of intensive construction. Marcus explained. We call it the Sanctuary Project. It's designed to ensure human survival regardless of what happens in the core galaxy. Survival against what? Demanded Admiral Rexus. Against the inevitable, Marcus replied calmly. Our predictive models indicate a 78% probability of galaxy-wide conflict within the next 14 months. We're prepared for that eventuality. The display shifted to show defensive capabilities that made the assembled delegates gasp. Energy shields that could protect entire star systems. Weapon platforms that could destroy fleets from distances measured in light years. Manufacturing capabilities that could replace losses faster than attackers could inflict them. But that's not why I'm here. Marcus continued. I'm here because something has changed in our calculations. New data appeared on the display, showing recent military movements throughout the galaxy. The Corvan Warfleet had been secretly mobilizing forces near Arctanian space. The hegemony remnant had been building weapons platforms in neutral territory. Several smaller powers had formed secret alliances against larger neighbors. The timeline has accelerated, Marcus announced grimly. Our latest projections indicate a 53% probability of conflict, beginning within the next 6 months. The chamber erupted in accusations and denials, but Marcus raised his hand for silence. There's more. We've detected evidence that several species have been attempting to reverse engineer human technology from our abandoned facilities. These attempts have been largely unsuccessful, but they've produced some concerning results. The display showed footage of a weapons test gone wrong on a remote hegemony world. The explosion had carved a crater visible from orbit and left the surrounding area uninhabitable due to exotic radiation. Attempts to weaponize technologies you don't understand could result in casualties far beyond anything we've predicted, Marcus warned. We cannot allow such experimentation to continue. Are you threatening us? Admiral Rexus demanded. I'm informing you of our position, Marcus replied with deadly calm. The human species will not permit the development of weapons that could threaten galactic stability, regardless of who develops them. The threat was clear and absolute. The humans would intervene to prevent anyone from developing dangerous technologies, whether those species accepted human oversight or not. Chancellor Mordain leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Chen? An immediate ceasefire on all military activities while we implement emergency stabilization measures, Marcus replied. Species that comply will receive immediate access to technologies that can address their resource concerns. Species that don't comply will be neutralized. Neutralized how? Asked Ambassador Thelnari, though her voice suggested she dreaded the answer. Marcus's expression remained calm, but his next words sent shockwaves through the assembly. We have the capability to disable the faster-than-light drives of every ship in the galaxy, simultaneously. We can shut down planetary defense systems from here. We can target individual weapons platforms, command centers, and industrial facilities with precision that makes resistance futile. The scope of human capabilities was staggering. They weren't just offering to help prevent galactic war. They were declaring their ability to stop it by force if necessary. "You're talking about galactic conquest," accused Prime Minister Vexlon. "We're talking about galactic intervention," Marcus corrected. "We have no interest in ruling anyone. We want to prevent the destruction that your current path guarantees. And if we refuse?" Marcus's final words carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Then we implement the Sanctuary Protocol. Human space becomes completely isolated from the rest of the galaxy. We protect ourselves and let you proceed toward mutual destruction without our interference." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The humans had just made it clear that they possessed the power to either save galactic civilization or abandon it to its fate. The choice was no longer about accepting human help. It was about whether galactic civilization would survive at all. The crisis began exactly as the humans had predicted. Admiral Kexmore of the Corvan Warfleet, driven by pride and the belief that human threats were empty bluster, launched a surprise attack on 3 Arctanian mining colonies in the disputed Vega sector. The assault was swift, brutal, and designed to present the galaxy with a fait accompli before anyone could respond. Within hours, the Arctanian Federation declared war on the Corvan Empire. The hegemony remnant, seeing an opportunity to settle old scores, mobilized their fleets against both powers. Smaller species began choosing sides or fled toward neutral territory that was rapidly disappearing. In the Galactic Council emergency chamber, Ambassador Zethkari watched the real-time tactical displays with growing horror. Hundreds of ships were converging on battle zones across multiple systems. The war that had been brewing for months was finally exploding into reality. "Get me a communication link to the humans," he ordered desperately. "Any frequency, any method." "Sir," his aide replied nervously, "we've been trying for 6 hours. They're not responding to any of our calls." The implications were terrifying. Either the humans were unable to respond, or they had chosen not to. Given their demonstrated capabilities, the latter seemed far more likely. "Incoming transmission on all frequencies," the communications officer announced suddenly. "It's being broadcast to every inhabited system in the galaxy." The main display activated to show Marcus Chen. But something had changed. He was no longer alone at a simple podium. Behind him stretched a vast command center filled with humans working at stations monitoring thousands of displays. The scale suggested this facility was larger than most planetary capitals. "Citizens of the galaxy," Marcus began, his voice carrying across every communication network simultaneously. "The conflict we warned about has begun. As of 18 minutes ago, combat operations commenced in 14 star systems with casualty estimates already exceeding 50,000 sentient beings." Real-time footage from the battle zones appeared on screens throughout the galaxy. The images were devastating. Ships torn apart by weapons fire, space stations venting atmosphere as they broke apart, escape pods fleeing from dying vessels. The Corvan Warfleet initiated hostilities by attacking civilian mining operations in the Vega sector, Marcus continued. The Arctanian Federation responded with military force. The hegemony remnant has now joined the conflict, ostensibly as peacekeepers but actually pursuing territorial objectives. The clinical accuracy of the human assessment was unsettling. They weren't just monitoring the conflict. They were analyzing motivations, strategies, and probable outcomes in real time. Under the terms of our previous offer, species participating in this conflict have forfeited their right to human assistance, Marcus announced. However, we will not permit this war to spread beyond its current scope or to involve weapons of mass destruction. In the command center behind Marcus, technicians began implementing procedures that would demonstrate human capabilities to the entire galaxy. "Beginning implementation of Intervention Protocol 7, Marcus declared. Across the galaxy, something impossible happened. Every military vessel involved in the conflict suddenly found their faster-than-light drives offline. Ships that had been jumping between systems were stranded wherever they had last dropped out of hyperspace. Reinforcements rushing to join the battle found themselves trapped in normal space, unable to travel faster than light. What did they do?" whispered Admiral Rexus, who was monitoring the situation from Corvan High Command. His fleet had been reduced to sublight speeds, making tactical repositioning impossible. The answer came from Dr. Kefta, who was frantically analyzing sensor data from the Ethereal Collective's most advanced monitoring stations. They've somehow interfered with the quantum field fluctuations that enable faster-than-light travel. I don't understand the mechanism, but the effect is localized to military vessels currently engaged in hostile actions. The implications were staggering. The humans had demonstrated the ability to selectively disable the technology that made interstellar warfare possible, stranding aggressive fleets while leaving civilian and neutral vessels unaffected. But Marcus wasn't finished with his demonstration. Additionally, to prevent the use of planet-killing weapons, he continued, we are implementing selective equipment failures on all weapon systems above Class 7 destructive capability. Throughout the combat zones, the largest and most destructive weapons simply stopped working. Planet crackers designed to shatter worlds went offline. Antimatter torpedoes that could sterilize continents failed to detonate. Gravity bombs capable of destabilizing solar systems became inert. The warring fleets found themselves limited to conventional ship-to-ship weapons, unable to escalate to the level of destruction that had characterized previous galactic conflicts. The current participants are free to continue their conflict using available resources, Marcus announced. However, any attempt to involve additional forces, deploy restricted weapons, or expand the conflict beyond current boundaries will result in complete neutralization of the aggressive party's military capabilities. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate a new reality. The humans had effectively contained the war without participating in it. They had demonstrated control over technologies that every species considered fundamental to their security. In the Corvin Command Center, Admiral Rexus stared at tactical displays showing his supposedly invincible fleet reduced to crawling between planets at sublight speeds. His most powerful weapons were useless, his strategic mobility was gone, and reinforcements couldn't reach the battle zones. Sir, his tactical officer reported grimly, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 of our vessels. They're reporting critical system failures across all major weapons platforms. Similar scenes were playing out across the Arctanian and Hegemony fleets. Ships that had entered battle expecting quick victories found themselves fighting with weapons barely more advanced than those used centuries ago. The technological advantage that had made modern warfare so devastating had been stripped away, leaving only the brutal reality of conventional combat. How are they doing this? Demanded Chancellor Vexilon from the Arctanian war room. No one has the technology to disable faster-than-light drives from remote locations. Her chief scientist, Dr. Molthera, was studying the sensor readings with growing amazement and terror. They're manipulating fundamental forces we barely understand. This isn't just advanced technology. It's a completely different approach to physics. The war continued, but it had been transformed into something manageable. Without the ability to bring in massive reinforcements or deploy planet-killing weapons, the conflict became a series of limited engagements between forces already in position. Casualties, while still significant, were a fraction of what had been predicted. 3 days into the contained conflict, Marcus Chen appeared again on galactic communication networks. This time, his message was directed specifically at the leaders of the warring factions. Admiral Rexus, Chancellor Vexilon, Supreme Commander Goltar, he addressed them directly. Your forces have been fighting for 72 hours with no decisive advantage for any party. Casualties now exceed 200,000, with no strategic objectives achieved. Real-time battle analysis appeared on the displays, showing how the conflict had become a stalemate. Without their most powerful weapons and fastest ships, none of the factions could achieve the rapid victories they had planned. We offer you one final opportunity to end this conflict voluntarily, Marcus continued. Accept our mediation. Agree to binding arbitration of your territorial disputes and your technological capabilities will be restored. Continue fighting and we will implement Protocol 8. What's Protocol 8? Admiral Rexus asked his intelligence staff, though he dreaded the answer. The response came directly from Marcus, as if he had heard the question. Protocol 8 involves the complete shutdown of all military technology for participating factions. Ships will be reduced to emergency life support only. Weapons will be permanently disabled. Your forces will be unable to continue fighting even if they wanted to. The threat was absolute. The humans weren't just limiting the war. They were offering to end it entirely by making warfare impossible. Additionally, Marcus added, we've prepared humanitarian assistance for all casualties of this conflict, regardless of species or faction. Medical ships are standing by to provide aid that exceeds anything currently available to your militaries. The offer was as surprising as the threat, even while demonstrating their ability to disable entire fleets. The humans were offering to heal the wounded and save the dying. The choice is yours, Marcus concluded. End this conflict now and accept our assistance in resolving the underlying issues, or lose the ability to fight altogether. The transmission ended, leaving the three faction leaders to contemplate their options. They could surrender their pride and accept human mediation, or they could continue fighting until the humans made fighting impossible. In the Corvin Command Center, Admiral Rexus looked at the casualty reports, the tactical stalemate, and the complete inability to achieve any of his original objectives. His proud fleet was trapped, his weapons were lay. The ceasefire negotiations took place on a neutral space station in the Kepler system, chosen specifically because it had never been claimed by any of the major powers. Representatives from the three warring factions sat at a circular table, their faces bearing the weight of defeat without honor, and the uncertainty of a future shaped by human intervention. Marcus Chen entered the conference room with a small delegation of humans, but his presence dominated the space in a way that had nothing to do with numbers. Behind him walked specialists carrying data tablets and holographic projectors, their movements efficient and purposeful. "Gentlemen," Marcus began, taking his seat across from the alien delegates, "thank you for agreeing to these discussions. Before we address the immediate conflict, I want to ensure you understand the broader context of our intervention." The holographic display activated to show a comprehensive analysis of the 3-day war that had just ended. Casualty figures, resource expenditures, tactical movements, and strategic outcomes were laid out with clinical precision. "Your conflict achieved none of its stated objectives," Marcus observed. "The Corvin Empire gained no new territory. The Arctanian Federation's mining rights remain disputed. The hegemony remnants' attempt to expand their influence resulted in significant losses with no strategic advantage." Admiral Rexus's scarred face flushed with anger. "We would have achieved our objectives if you hadn't interfered." "No," Marcus replied calmly. "You would have achieved mutual destruction on a scale that would have made victory meaningless." The display shifted to show projections of what the conflict would have become without human intervention. Escalating weapons deployment, expanding theaters of operation, and casualty estimates that climbed into the billions. Within 2 weeks, the conflict would have drawn in 17 additional species, Marcus explained. Within a month, someone would have deployed planet-killing weapons. Within 3 months, entire star systems would have been sterilized. Chancellor Vexilon leaned forward. "Those are projections, not certainties." "They're projections based on 5,000 years of galactic conflict patterns," Marcus corrected. "Every war in recorded galactic history has followed similar escalation patterns. The only variable has been the destructive capability of available weapons." Supreme Commander Goltar of the Hegemony Remnant spoke for the first time. "What do you propose as an alternative?" Marcus gestured, and the holographic display changed to show detailed territorial and resource distribution maps. The underlying causes of this conflict were competition for rare mineral deposits in the Vega sector, overlapping territorial claims dating back 3 centuries, and economic pressures from declining trade revenues. "All solvable problems," he continued, "if approached systematically rather than militarily." The display showed proposed solutions that were staggering in their scope and sophistication. New mining technologies that could extract rare minerals from previously inaccessible sources. Territorial arrangements that gave each faction access to resources they needed, without overlapping claims. Economic development programs that could generate more wealth than the contested territories were worth. "The humans offer these solutions freely?" asked Chancellor Vexilon suspiciously. "We offer them contingent on your acceptance of the broader framework we've proposed," Marcus replied. "No military conflicts, no territorial expansion through force, and submission to arbitration for future disputes." Admiral Rexus slammed his hand on the table. "You're asking us to give up our sovereignty." "We're asking you to give up your ability to commit suicide," Marcus corrected. "Individual species sovereignty remains intact for all internal affairs. We only intervene in conflicts that threaten galactic stability." The distinction was important but limited. Species could govern themselves as they saw fit, but they could no longer threaten their neighbors. What about species that refuse to accept this framework? Asked Supreme Commander Goltar. Marcus's expression became colder. They become irrelevant to galactic affairs. The holographic display showed human defensive perimeters that had been established throughout the galaxy. Any species that rejected the framework would find themselves isolated, unable to expand beyond their current territory, and cut off from the technologies that made interstellar civilization possible. You would create a two-tier galaxy, Chancellor Vexilon observed. Those who accept human oversight and those who are quarantined. We would create a stable galaxy, Marcus replied. Species that choose isolation are free to develop as they see fit within their own territories. Species that choose cooperation gain access to technologies and opportunities beyond anything previously available. The offer was seductive and terrifying in equal measure. Accept human guidance and gain access to technologies that could eliminate scarcity, extend lifespans, and expand into previously unreachable regions of space. Reject it and face permanent containment within current boundaries. How do we know you won't simply become the next galactic empire? Asked Admiral Rexus. History is full of conquerors who promised peace and prosperity. Marcus activated a new set of displays showing human activities in their hidden territories. The scope was even more vast than previous revelations had suggested. Because we don't need an empire, he replied. We've already built something better. The images showed human worlds that defied imagination, planets that had been completely terraformed in decades rather than centuries, space habitats that housed billions in comfort and luxury. Industrial complexes that could manufacture anything imaginable without depleting natural resources. We've solved the fundamental problems that drive imperial expansion, Marcus explained. We don't need more territory because we can create habitable worlds more efficiently than we can conquer them. We don't need more resources because we can transmute matter at the atomic level. We don't need more population because our existing population is growing sustainably. The revelation was stunning. The humans hadn't just developed superior military technology, they had transcended the basic limitations that drove galactic politics. Then why do you care what we do? Asked Supreme Commander Goltar. Marcus's answer carried the weight of absolute sincerity. Because we remember what it was like to be trapped in cycles of conflict and destruction. Because we believe every sentient species deserves the opportunity to transcend those limitations. And because a galaxy at war is a galaxy that cannot explore the universe beyond our current boundaries. The holographic display expanded to show star maps extending far beyond the known galaxy. Distant galaxies, unexplored regions of space, and phenomena that suggested intelligent life on scales beyond current comprehension. The universe is vast beyond imagination, Marcus continued. While you fight over systems and planets, there are entire galaxies waiting to be explored. There are forms of life and intelligence that make our current understanding seem primitive. There are challenges that will require the combined efforts of every species in the galaxy to overcome. The vision was breathtaking and humbling. The humans were offering not just peace but participation in something far grander than anyone had imagined. The choice is yours, Marcus concluded. Accept our framework and join us in building a future worth living in, or remain trapped in the cycles of the past. The three military leaders looked at each other, seeing reflected in alien faces the same mixture of fear, ambition, and hope that they felt themselves. The age of galactic warfare was ending. The question was what would replace it. 5 years had passed since the Treaty of Kepler established the new galactic order. The transformation was so complete that younger generations struggled to understand how different things had been before human. Intervention Director Sil Andros stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Cooperation Station, watching ships from dozens of species dock at facilities that would have been impossible to imagine under the old system. Corvin vessels loaded with minerals extracted using human mining technology worked alongside Arctanian freighters, carrying manufactured goods produced in orbital factories. Hegemony research ships collaborated with Nexarian exploration vessels to survey distant star systems. Remarkable, isn't it? A familiar voice said behind him. Silandros turned to see Marcus Chen approaching, looking barely changed despite the passage of years. The human moved with the same calm confidence he had always displayed, but something in his demeanor suggested deep satisfaction. I admit, when you first presented your proposal, I thought you were offering a slavery disguised as salvation. Cilandro said honestly. I was wrong. Marcus joined him at the observation window, watching the busy traffic of vessels from across the galaxy. Many species had the same concern. It's natural to fear the unknown, especially when the unknown has the power to destroy you. But you didn't destroy anyone, Cilandros observed. Even the species that initially rejected the framework were eventually welcomed back when they changed their minds. Because destruction was never the goal, Marcus replied. We spent 50 years learning about galactic civilization, and we came to understand that every species has something valuable to contribute. The challenge was creating a system that allowed that contribution while preventing the conflicts that had defined galactic history. The holographic displays throughout the station showed real-time data from across the galaxy, trade volumes that exceeded anything from the previous era, scientific discoveries resulting from unprecedented cooperation between species, exploration missions pushing into previously unreachable regions of space. The economic growth alone has been extraordinary, Cilandros noted. Eliminating the costs of military preparation has freed up resources that most governments never knew they had. That was the easy part, Marcus said. The hard part was convincing species to trust each other enough to make cooperation possible. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. Many species had initially complied with human demands while secretly resenting the loss of their military independence. It took time to demonstrate that the new system offered opportunities that far exceeded anything they had given up. The Corvan Empire's expansion into the Andromeda Preparation Project has been particularly impressive, Cilandros continued. Admiral Rexus seems to have channeled his aggressive instincts into exploration rather than conquest. Marcus smiled. The Corvans were always excellent warriors. Now they're excellent explorers. Their willingness to take risks and push boundaries makes them ideal for reconnaissance missions in unknown territories. The Andromeda Project represented the ultimate expression of the new galactic order. Rather than fighting over resources in their current galaxy, dozens of species were working together to prepare for the first intergalactic colonization effort in known history. How long before the first expedition launches? Cilandros asked. 18 months, Marcus replied. The preparation ships are already positioned at the galactic rim, and the long-range communication networks are being installed. If everything goes according to plan, we'll have established permanent contact with Andromeda within a decade. The scope of the project would have been impossible under the old system. It required resources from dozens of species, technologies that could only be developed through cooperation, and a level of trust that had never existed in galactic civilization. What about the resistance movements? Cilandros asked. There are still species that believe human oversight is temporary. Marcus's expression became more serious. There will always be those who prefer the old ways. We monitor them, but we don't suppress them unless they threaten galactic stability. The resistance movements were small but persistent. Groups of individuals from various species who believed that galactic civilization had traded freedom for security. Most were harmless, but a few had attempted to develop weapons or restart conflicts. The attempted rebellion in the Tau sector last year was concerning, Cilandros noted. It was educational, Marcus corrected. It demonstrated to everyone that the old patterns of conflict are no longer viable. When their weapons failed to function, and their ships couldn't achieve faster than light speeds, the rebels realized they were fighting with obsolete tools against an obsolete concept. The rebellion had collapsed within hours, not because of human military action, but because the rebels discovered they were incapable of conducting the kind of warfare that had defined the previous era. Some critics argue that you've made the galaxy too safe, Cilandros said. That conflict and competition drive innovation and growth. Marcus gestured toward the bustling activity visible through the observation windows. Does this look like stagnation to you? We've had more scientific breakthroughs, more technological advances, and more cultural exchange in the past 5 years than in the previous century. It was true. The combination of human technology, alien perspectives, and cooperative research had accelerated progress beyond anything previously imagined. Medical advances that extended lifespans across all species, energy systems that made scarcity obsolete, transportation technologies that made the galaxy feel smaller and more connected. What's next? Cilandros asked. You've achieved galactic peace, eliminated resource conflicts, and established cooperation between species that had been enemies for millennia. What does humanity want now? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching ships from dozens of worlds work together in perfect coordination. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of profound purpose. We want to prepare for what's coming. Coming from where? Marcus activated a holographic display that showed deep space monitoring data. The images were of distant galaxies, but the energy signatures were unlike anything in the natural universe. We're not the only intelligent life in the universe, Marcus explained, and we're definitely not the most advanced. Our long-range sensors have detected structures and energy patterns that suggest civilizations millions of years ahead of us technologically. The implications were staggering. Everything they had achieved, all the progress and cooperation, was preparation for contact with entities that made human capabilities seem primitive. How long do we have? Silandros asked. Unknown, Marcus replied. The signals we're detecting originated thousands of years ago. Whatever sent them could already be aware of us, or they might never notice our existence. And if they do notice? Marcus's expression was grave but determined. Then we'll need every advantage we can get. A unified galaxy with shared technology and cooperative defense systems, species that trust each other enough to work together against external threats, and the kind of rapid innovation that only comes from combining the best minds of dozens of different civilizations. The true purpose of human intervention became clear. They hadn't imposed peace on the galaxy out of altruism or a desire for control. They had been preparing for a threat that made galactic conflicts irrelevant. You've been planning for this from the beginning, Silandros realized. We've been hoping we wouldn't need to, Marcus corrected. But our analysis suggests that any species capable of interstellar travel will eventually encounter others with the same capability. The universe is too vast and too old for us to be unique. The observation deck fell silent as both beings contemplated the magnitude of what lay ahead. The galaxy had finally achieved peace, but that peace was preparation for a challenge that would test every species' commitment to cooperation and survival. Will it be enough? Silandros asked. Marcus Chen, representative of the species that had quietly orchestrated the greatest transformation in galactic history, watched ships from dozens of worlds working together toward a common future. It has to be, he replied, because the alternative is extinction. The human gambit had succeeded. They had taken a galaxy trapped in cycles of self-destruction and forged it into something capable of facing the unknown. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. But for the first time in galactic history, every species would face the future together. The age of human oversight was ending, but the age of galactic unity had just begun.